Tonight, we journey to a land of endless sky, a vast, empty canvas of grassland that stretches from one horizon to the other. We are going to the great steppes of Central Asia, the homeland of the Mongol Empire. Our story tonight is not one of brutal conquest or the clashing of great armies. It is a quieter story. It is the story of a whisper on the wind, of a skill so profound it became legendary, of a warrior who could disappear into the landscape like a ghost. We will unravel the secrets of the Mongol horse archer, not by studying their battles, but by understanding their lives. We will learn how a childhood spent in the saddle, a deep instinctual partnership with their animals, and a bow that was a marvel of engineering, came together to create the most feared and effective warrior of their time. There is nothing you need to do now, but find a comfortable position, settle in, and let the sound of the wind sweeping across the grasslands carry you back in time. Allow the quiet creak of leather, the soft murmur of an ancient story, and the distant rhythm of hoofbeats to guide you toward a state of deep relaxation. Close your eyes, and let us begin our journey in a place where a child learns to ride before they can properly walk. If you enjoy these journeys into the past, I'd really appreciate a quick like or even a subscribe. It helps our small community of quiet history lovers grow more than you know. I'm always curious where you all are listening from, so feel free to drop a comment with your location and what time it is there. It's fascinating to see our global community connecting through these stories. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. Imagine a small child, perhaps 3 years old. Imagine the world from their perspective. Your days are not defined by the walls of a house, but by the vast, open space of the steppe. The sky above is an immense, overwhelming blue dome. The land around you is a sea of grass, its color changing with the seasons from a vibrant green to a pale golden brown. Your home is not a fixed point, but a small portable universe of warmth and safety. It is a jur, a circular dwelling made of a wooden lattice covered in thick layers of felted wool. It can be taken down and packed onto a cart in a matter of hours, ready to follow the herds to new pastures. The rhythm of your life is the nomadic pulse of your people. But before you have even taken your first confident steps across the soft, worn rugs of the jur, you are introduced to the central, defining element of your existence. You are introduced to the horse. Your mother, her face weathered by the sun and wind, lifts you up. You are not placed on the ground to crawl. You are placed on the back of a horse. It is a Mongol horse, a creature not large or elegant by the standards of other cultures, but possessed of an incredible, unshakable hardiness. It is short, stocky, with a shaggy coat and an almost limitless stamina. Your mother does not place you on a complex leather saddle. She places you directly on the horse's broad, warm back. Your small legs, barely able to walk, are of no use here. Instead, she ties you securely to the horse, your body bound to its body. Your hands, small and clumsy, clutch at its coarse, thick mane. And then, the horse begins to walk. The motion is a gentle, rhythmic swaying, a living cradle. Your first memory of the world is not of solid ground, but of this constant, soothing, side-to-side rhythm. The horse becomes your first landscape, its warm, living scent your first perfume, the feel of its powerful muscles moving beneath you, your first understanding of motion. You spend hours like this. As your mother leads the horse, going about her daily chores, you are simply there, a part of the animal. You learn the balance required to stay upright not through instruction, but through instinct. Your small body learns to anticipate the horse's movements, to shift its weight with every step. Falling is not a disaster, it is a lesson. You might tumble off into the soft grass, the fall short and harmless. There is no great fuss. You might cry for a moment, a brief sharp shock, but then you are simply lifted up and placed back on the horse again. The lesson is unspoken but clear. The horse is where you belong. You learn to ride not as a skill to be acquired, but as a primary state of being, as natural and as necessary as breathing. As you grow a little older, perhaps reaching the age of 5, your training begins to take on a more formal structure, though it would still seem like simple play to an outsider. You are given your first bow. It is not the great, powerful composite bow of a warrior. It is a small, simple thing, perhaps made from a willow branch, or from the polished rib bone of a sheep. The string is a piece of dried sinew. The arrows are little more than sharpened sticks, fletched with feathers from a goose. Your father, or an older brother, shows you how to hold it. He does not give you long lectures on technique. He shows you. He nocks an arrow, draws the string back to his cheek, and with a soft thwump, sends the small arrow into a target made of turf and mud a few paces away. Then he gives the bow to you. Your first attempts are clumsy. The string is hard to pull. The arrow wobbles and falls to the ground. But again, there is no scolding. There is only patient repetition. You spend your days practicing, shooting at targets, at clumps of grass, at anything that catches your eye. This is not a chore. It is a game, a way of interacting with the world. You are learning the language of the bow. Your small hands learn the feel of the wood, the tension of the string. Your eyes learn how to judge distance, how to account for the ever-present wind that sweeps across the grasslands. And this practice is almost always done from horseback. You learn to nock an arrow, draw and shoot while your small horse is at a walk, then at a trot. You learn to absorb the motion of the animal into your own body, so that your upper body remains a still, stable platform, even as the horse moves beneath you. The rhythm of the horse's gait and the rhythm of your own breathing begin to merge into one. Your life inside the ger is a world of deep, comforting sensations. As the wind howls outside, a sound that is a constant companion on the steppe. The inside of the circular dwelling is a haven of warmth. In the center, a small fire, fueled by dried animal dung, crackles and glows. The smoke from the fire escapes through a single opening at the peak of the roof, and its faint, smoky scent permeates everything, clinging to the felt walls and the woolen clothes. It is the smell of home. You sit on thick, soft rugs made from the hides of animals your family has hunted. The light from the fire casts a warm orange glow, making the small space feel safe and intimate. In the evenings, this is where the stories are told. Your mother, her hands busy mending a piece of leather or churning milk in a skin bag, will tell the old tales. Her voice is a low, soft murmur, another layer in the quiet soundscape of the night. She tells you stories of your ancestors, of great hunters and wise women. She tells you of the spirit world, of the eternal blue sky, Tengri, who watches over everything, and of the spirits of the earth and the water. She tells you stories of the animals that are your partners in this life. She tells you of the wisdom of the wolf, the keen sight of the falcon, and above all, the profound loyalty and endurance of the horse. Through these stories, you learn who you are. You learn that you are part of a long, unbroken chain, that the skills you are learning, to ride, to shoot, to survive, are the same skills that have kept your people alive on this vast, empty land for 1,000 years. Your relationship with animals is not one of master and pet. It is a partnership born of mutual dependence. The horses are your legs, your freedom. The goats and sheep that wander in a small, bleating flock near the camp are your sustenance, providing the milk that you drink and the meat that you eat. And sometimes there is another companion. Your father might be a falconer. You watch as he works with his goshawk or his falcon. You see the deep, silent communication that passes between them. You watch him release the bird, see it climb into the sky, a speck of darkness against the blue, and then watch it plummet to the earth to strike its prey. This is another lesson. It is a lesson in patience, in observation, in the art of working with another creature's natural instincts to achieve a shared goal. Discipline is not taught through harsh words or physical punishment. It is absorbed from the environment itself. Survival on the steppe is a constant, quiet struggle. You learn from a young age that wasting food is unthinkable. You learn that a task once started must be completed. You learn that complaining about the cold or the wind is useless, as the wind does not listen. Above all, you learn the importance of silent communication. In a hunt, a loud voice will scare the prey. A complex series of hand signals, a shared glance, a slight shift in posture. This is the language of the steppe. It is a language of subtlety, of observation, of perfect unspoken coordination. And so, your childhood unfolds. It is a life that, to an outsider, might seem harsh and deprived. But to you, it is the only life you know, and it is full. It is a life lived in constant motion, in deep connection with the natural world. It is a long, unhurried education in the fundamental skills of survival. And every part of it, the sway of the horse, the tension of the bowstring, the stories by the fire, the silent language of the hunt, is slowly, patiently, and inexorably shaping you. It is turning you into a single, seamless entity, the horse archer, a creature whose home is the saddle, whose breath is the wind, and whose quiet, patient skill will one day change the world. The small bone and willow bow of your childhood, a tool of games and simple lessons, is eventually set aside. As your body grows stronger and your understanding deepens, you are introduced to the instrument that is the heart of the Mongol warrior's power. It is not just a weapon, it is a masterpiece of engineering, a technology perfected over centuries, a complex and living thing. This is the Mongol composite bow. To hold it for the first time is to feel a potential for power that is almost frightening. Let us imagine you are now a young man, your apprenticeship as a hunter and rider nearing its completion. Your father, or a master bowyer in your clan, decides you are ready. He does not simply give you a finished bow, he shows you how it is made. The process is a lesson in itself, a slow, patient art that is a form of magic, a way of combining humble, ordinary materials to create something of extraordinary power. The process can take a full year, sometimes longer. It is a work of profound patience, a physical manifestation of the Mongol virtue of endurance. The core of the bow, its skeleton, is wood. It is not a single piece, but several, carefully selected from birch or another pliable, strong wood. These pieces are shaped and seasoned, left to dry for months until they are perfectly cured. But the wood is only the foundation. The true genius of the bow lies in the materials that are laminated to this wooden core. On the belly of the bow, the side that faces you when you draw it, the bowyer glues a layer of horn. This is often the horn of a water buffalo or another wild ungulate, prized for its ability to resist compression. The horn is sliced into thin, flat strips, a difficult, painstaking process. These strips are then fitted together with meticulous precision, their seams almost invisible. On the back of the bow, the side that faces away from you, he applies the second critical component, sinew. This is the long, powerful tendon taken from the back and legs of a deer or an ox. The sinew is shredded into fine fibers, and then it is painstakingly glued onto the wooden back of the bow, layer upon layer upon layer. The glue itself is another product of the natural world, rendered down from the skin and swim bladders of fish. It is a powerful, flexible adhesive that remains resilient in both heat and cold. This process of applying the sinew is the most time-consuming part of all. Each layer must be allowed to dry completely before the next is applied. It is a slow accretion of strength, building up the bow's ability to resist tension. When finished, the bow is a paradox. It is relatively small, much shorter than the longbows of Europe, making it easy to wield from horseback. But it is immensely powerful. When unstrung, it does not lie flat. It curves back on itself into a pronounced C shape. This is the sign of its power. The horn on its belly and the sinew on its back are in a constant state of tension, storing a tremendous amount of potential energy. To string it requires immense strength and a specific, learned technique, using the legs and arms to bend the powerful limbs into place. Once strung, it is a thing of lethal grace. Its tips, or siars, are stiff and unbending, acting as levers that increase the speed and power of the arrow's flight. Now you must learn to use this powerful instrument. The technique is different from what you learned as a child. You do not pull the string with your fingertips. You use what is known as the thumb draw. You loop your thumb around the string, and you lock it in place with your index and middle fingers. To protect your thumb from the immense pressure of the string, you wear a thumb ring, a small, smooth ring made of polished stone, like jade, or bone, or sometimes metal. This technique allows for a quicker, cleaner release of the string, with less of the wobble that can send an arrow off course. It is a small detail, but in the science of archery, small details are everything. Your training now becomes a form of meditation. It is about more than just hitting a target. It is about achieving a state of perfect unity between yourself, the horse, and the bow. You practice for hours riding out onto the open steppe, far from the camp. You are alone with the wind in the sky. You begin at a gallop, the rhythmic 3-beat sound of your horse's hoofbeats, a familiar steady drum. You take an arrow from the quiver slung on your back, not with a clumsy fumbling motion, but with a fluid, unconscious grace, the movement so practiced it requires no thought. You knock the arrow to the string, again by feel alone. Now comes the hardest part. As the horse gallops on, its body a storm of motion beneath you, you must find a moment of stillness. You learn to time your shot with the rhythm of the horse. There is a brief, almost imperceptible moment of suspension in the horse's stride, a tiny pocket of calm in the midst of the movement. This is the moment to shoot. You draw the bow, not with a jerk, but with a smooth, steady pull, bringing the string back to your ear, your anchor point. And as you draw, you control your breath. You exhale slowly, emptying your lungs, and in the moment of quiet emptiness before your next inhalation, your body becomes still. Your mind becomes clear. There is only you, the string, the arrow, and the distant imaginary target. You release. The string snaps forward with a deep, resonant thrum, a sound that vibrates through your entire body. The arrow is gone before you can truly register its departure. It is a blur, a hiss of sound that is quickly swallowed by the wind, and you are already reaching for the next arrow. Draw, breathe, release, draw, breathe, release. It becomes a cycle, a mantra of motion. You learn to shoot in all directions, not just straight ahead. You practice twisting your torso, firing to the left, to the right. You learn to shoot from a standing horse, a walking horse, a galloping horse, and you perfect the most devastating and legendary of all Mongol tactics, the Parthian shot. This is the art of shooting backward, over the rump of your horse, while in full retreat. Imagine the scene from the perspective of an enemy. A squadron of Mongol archers appears on the horizon. They gallop towards you, loosing a volley of arrows. You and your heavily armored infantry brace for the charge, but instead of closing for hand-to-hand combat, they suddenly turn. They feign a retreat. It seems like a victory. You and your comrades, emboldened, break formation and begin to charge after them. And this is when the true attack begins. The retreating Mongols, perfectly at ease in their saddles, turn their entire upper bodies around. They rise slightly in their stirrups, and they unleash a second, and then a third, and then a fourth volley of arrows, each one fired with deadly accuracy, even as their horses are carrying them away at full speed. Your charge falters. Men fall around you, arrows sprouting from their chests and throats. The disciplined retreat has become a devastating one-sided slaughter. It is a tactic that is both brilliant and deeply unnerving. It turns the act of running away into an act of aggression. It is the disappearing act of a ghost who kills from a distance. Before any great undertaking, a hunt or a battle, a quiet ritual takes place. You do not simply take up your bow. You prepare it. You might gently warm it by a fire to make the limbs more supple. You take a piece of cloth, soaked in animal fat, and you carefully, reverently oil the bow's wooden and horn surfaces, protecting them from the damp or the drying heat. You check the string, twisting it to ensure its tension is perfect. You might tie a small charm to the bow, a tuft of brightly colored wool, or a small polished stone given to you by a shaman, a quiet prayer for good fortune and a steady hand. These are small acts, but they are important. They are a way of showing respect for the instrument, of focusing the mind, of reaffirming the sacred bond between the warrior and his weapon. The soft, rhythmic sound of the cloth polishing the bow, the quiet creak of the string being settled into place. These are the sounds of a warrior finding his center, preparing his body and his spirit for the violent, focused work to come. The solitary practice on the open steppe, the endless cycle of draw, breathe, and release, is what forges the individual warrior. It hones his skill until it is no longer a conscious thought, but a pure, unthinking reflex. But the true power of the Mongol army, the force that allowed a relatively small population from the grasslands to overwhelm the vast, settled empires of China, Persia, and Europe, was not the skill of one man. It was the skill of 100, 1,000, 10,000 men, all moving and acting as one. It was strategy born of silence, tactics rooted in deception, and coordination so perfect, it seemed to be the work of a single, collective mind. Let us imagine ourselves now, not as a single rider, but as a part of a tumen, a Mongol army of 10,000 horsemen gathered on a vast rolling plain. The sun is just beginning to rise, its light catching the tops of the distant hills. The air is cold and carries the scent of horse and damp earth. There is a profound hush over the assembled army. There are no great rousing speeches from the commanders, no trumpets blaring a dramatic call to arms. The Mongols did not believe in wasting energy on such displays. Their communication was quieter, more subtle, and infinitely more efficient. The supreme commander, the Khan, sits on his horse at the crest of a low hill, surrounded by his standard bearers. He does not shout orders. He raises a single black flag. The flag moves in a slow, deliberate arc, and across the vast, silent army, a ripple of response occurs. An entire wing of the army, thousands of men, begins to move. They do not move in a chaotic charge. They move in perfect, disciplined formations. The fundamental unit of this army is the Arban, a squad of 10 riders. These 10 men have likely known each other since childhood. They are brothers, cousins, men from the same clan. They have hunted together, lived together, and can anticipate each other's movements without a single spoken word. 10 of these Arbans form a squadron of 100, the Jagan. 10 Jagans form a regiment of 1,000, the Mingan. And 10 Mingans form the Tumen. The command structure is simple, decimal, and ruthlessly effective. The Khan's signal is relayed down this chain. The commander of a Mingan, seeing the black flag, gives a signal of his own, perhaps a smaller flag of a different color, or a specific, prearranged movement of his own horse. His 10 Jagan commanders see this and relay the order to their Arban leaders. And so, the will of one man, expressed in the silent movement of a flag, is translated into the coordinated action of thousands, with a speed and precision that would seem like magic to their more orthodox opponents. Today, the tactic to be employed is the most famous and feared in the Mongol playbook, the feigned retreat. The army divides. A small central force, perhaps only 1 or 2 Mingans, will advance towards the enemy. The rest of the army, the vast majority of its strength, melts away, disappearing behind hills, into shallow valleys, or simply pulling back over the horizon. From the perspective of the enemy, a disciplined army of heavily armored European knights, for example, it looks like they are facing only a small Mongol scouting party. The knights, confident in their superior numbers and heavy armor, begin their advance, their pace a slow, thunderous, and confident walk. The small Mongol force gallops forward. They are a whirlwind of motion, riding in loose, circling patterns. They unleash a volley of arrows, the shafts hissing through the air. The arrows are not designed to penetrate the knight's heavy plate armor. They are aimed at the horses. A knight without his horse is just a slow-moving, easily surrounded man in a metal box. A few horses go down. The knight's advance continues, undeterred. The Mongol force, after this initial harassment, does exactly what their opponents expect a smaller force to do. They turn and flee. This is the bait. The knights, seeing the enemy run, believe they have won the first engagement. A roar goes up from their ranks. Their commanders, sensing a quick victory, give the order to charge. The slow, disciplined walk becomes a thundering gallop. The knights lower their lances, their entire focus on running down the fleeing, seemingly terrified Mongols. And in doing so, they make a fatal error. Their tight, defensive formation begins to stretch out. The faster horses pull ahead, the slower ones lag behind. They are no longer a solid wall of steel, but a long, ragged line. And they are being drawn further and further away from their secure starting position. Deep into a landscape that the Mongols know intimately, the feigned retreat continues for miles. The Mongol horse archers are masters of this game. They stay just ahead of the charging knights, close enough to seem catchable, but always just out of reach. All the while, they are performing the deadly Parthian shot, turning in their saddles to fire volley after volley into the pursuing ranks. The knights, focused only on the chase, begin to tire. Their heavy war horses, bred for short, powerful charges, are lathered in sweat, their strength fading. The light, hardy Mongol ponies, on the other hand, could maintain this pace all day. Then, at a prearranged point, a signal is given. Perhaps a single whistling arrow is fired high into the air, its specially designed head creating a loud, shrieking sound that carries for miles on the wind. Or perhaps the retreating force simply melts away over the crest of a hill. The charging knights, finding their quarry has vanished, pull their exhausted horses to a halt in a wide, shallow basin. For a moment, there is confusion. And then there is horror. From the crests of the hills all around them, the rest of the Mongol army appears. They have been waiting, silent and unseen. The 2 wings, left and right, which had disappeared hours ago, now crest the ridges, forming the horns of a great crescent. The knights are no longer the hunters. They are the prey, trapped in a perfectly executed encirclement. The silence before the final attack is a weapon in itself. It is a moment of profound psychological warfare. The knights, exhausted and disorganized, look up at the silent, disciplined ranks that now surround them on all sides. And they understand that they have been led, with perfect precision, into a trap from which there is no escape. Then, the true arrow storm begins. It is not a scattered volley from a small group. It is a continuous, torrential downpour of arrows from every direction. 10,000 archers, each capable of firing multiple arrows a minute, create a sky black with shafts. There is no need for pinpoint accuracy now. The knights are packed so tightly in the basin that an archer cannot miss. The sound is a constant, terrifying hiss, like a million angry snakes, punctuated by the dull, wet thuds of arrows striking flesh and the high-pitched screams of wounded horses and men. There is no defense. The knights huddle behind their shields, but the arrows come from all sides, and from above, arcing high into the air to plunge down into their ranks. The once proud charge has become a static, helpless massacre. The battle was won not by the final bloody arrow storm, but hours earlier by the silent flag, the patient discipline, and the deceptive genius of the feigned retreat. This level of coordination over vast distances was made possible by a sophisticated system of signals. On the open steppe, where a man on horseback could see for miles, Flags were the primary tool. Different colors, different shapes, and different movements conveyed a whole dictionary of commands. Advance, retreat, wheel left, wheel right, encircle. For longer distances or at night, they used smoke signals and fire arrows, each with its own coded meaning. And for the quietest communications, for the hunter stalking his prey, they had the silent language of hand gestures, a language every Mongol child learned. It was this ability to communicate, to coordinate, and to deceive that transformed the Mongol horse archer from a skilled individual warrior into a component of the most terrifyingly efficient military machine the world had ever seen. The greatest weapon in their arsenal was not the bow, but the silence that preceded the storm. The battlefield falls silent. The last arrow has flown. The wind, which has been a constant companion to the battle, now whispers over a scene of profound stillness. The great army of knights, once a vision of shining steel and confident power, is now a broken tableau of fallen men and horses. The Mongol warriors, their work done with brutal efficiency, dismount. They move through the aftermath, not with the frenzied energy of a victor, but with the quiet, practical purpose of a hunter field dressing his kill. They retrieve their arrows, for every shaft is precious. They gather the armor, the weapons, and the horses of the fallen, for these are the spoils of war, the resources that will fuel the next campaign. The entire operation, from the initial feigned retreat to this final, methodical collection of resources, has been a testament to the Mongol way of war. A combination of strategic brilliance, psychological intimidation, and an unsentimental, waste-nothing pragmatism. This was the force that a man named Temujin, born into a world of warring, disunited tribes, managed to harness and unify. We know him as Genghis Khan. His story is not just one of a brilliant military commander, but of a visionary who understood the latent power of his people and their unique way of life. He did not invent the horse archer, nor did he invent the composite bow. These were ancient traditions of the steppe. What he did was to take this raw material of individual skill and nomadic hardiness and forge it into a disciplined, unified, and utterly loyal imperial army. Let us imagine a young Genghis Khan, long before he was the ruler of a vast empire. He is a young chieftain, struggling to survive in the brutal, shifting landscape of tribal politics. His own clan has been betrayed, his family scattered. He understands, in his very bones, that the old ways of intertribal warfare, the small-scale raids, the shifting alliances, the blood feuds, are a cycle of self-destruction. He envisions something new, a single nation, a Yeke Mongol Ulus, a great Mongol nation where all the tribes of the steppe are united under a single law, the Yasa, and a single leader, himself. To achieve this, he needed an army that was not loyal to a specific clan or a local chieftain, but to him alone. He began by reorganizing the very structure of the army. He broke up the old tribal units and deliberately mixed men from different, and often rival clans into new decimal units, the Arbans, Jaguns, and Mingans. A man's loyalty was no longer to his tribal leader, but to his 9 new comrades and the commander that Genghis himself had appointed. He promoted men based not on their noble birth or their family connections, as was the custom in so many other societies, but on their skill, their courage, and above all, their absolute loyalty to him. A shepherd with a steady hand and a keen eye could rise to command a regiment. This merit-based system created an officer corps that was ruthlessly effective and fanatically devoted. Genghis Khan understood that the horse archer was the perfect tool for his grand ambition. The mobility of his army meant he could choose the time and place of every battle. He could strike where his enemies were weakest, and he could disappear into the vastness of the steppe when faced with a superior force. He refined the tactics we have already explored, turning the feigned retreat and the encirclement into a devastatingly effective science. He also understood the power of fear. He knew that the rumor of his army's invincibility, the terrifying stories of their silent, lightning-fast attacks, could shatter an enemy's will to fight long before the first arrow was ever fired. The legacy of Genghis Khan is not just in the empire he built, but in the way he weaponized the entire nomadic way of life, turning the skills of a hunter into the tools of a world conqueror. Now let us shift our perspective. Let us leave the windswept steppe and enter the cramped, candlelit confines of a medieval European monastery. An elderly monk, a chronicler, is writing at his desk. His hand trembles slightly as he dips his quill into his inkwell. He is writing about the terrifying news that has been filtering in from the east. He is recording the accounts of merchants and refugees, stories of a new kind of army, a horde of devil's horsemen who have appeared as if from nowhere and are sweeping across the kingdoms of Russia and Poland. His Latin script is filled with a mixture of terror and utter incomprehension. He writes of an army that seems to have no baggage train, no infantry, an army that lives in the saddle and can cover distances that seem physically impossible. He describes their strange curved bows and the terrifying sound their arrows make as they fly. He records the tales of great armored armies of knights who rode out to meet them, only to be swallowed up by the endless plains, lured into traps and destroyed from a distance. The chronicler is trying to make sense of something that defies his entire understanding of warfare. He is used to a world of slow-moving armies, of long sieges, of pitched battles fought between heavily armored infantry. These Mongols are something else entirely. They are like a force of nature, a storm that appears on the horizon without warning, destroys everything in its path, and then vanishes, leaving only devastation behind. The fear in his writing is palpable. It is the fear of the unknown, the fear of an enemy who does not play by any of the established rules. His diary, and others like it, are a testament to the profound psychological shock that the Mongol way of war inflicted upon its victims. The influence of the Mongol archer did not end with the decline of their empire. The territories they conquered were forever changed. Let us travel to Persia. Here, a new dynasty, founded by the descendants of the Mongols, now rules. But they have adopted the sophisticated culture of the people they conquered. We find ourselves in an elegant tiled courtyard in Isfahan. A master artist is painting a miniature, a small, incredibly detailed illustration for a book of poetry. He is painting a scene from an epic tale, a battle between legendary heroes. And the hero he is painting, though dressed in the fine silks of a Persian prince, is on horseback, twisting in his saddle to fire an arrow backward at his pursuer. It is the Parthian shot, a tactic so effective, so iconic, that it has been absorbed into the artistic and military DNA of the culture that was once its victim. The Mongol style has become a part of the Persian ideal of the warrior prince. Or let us travel further east to Korea. Here, for centuries, the nation has had to contend with its powerful neighbors. The martial arts are a matter of national survival. In a quiet mountain valley, we find a training school for archers. Young men dressed in simple white robes are practicing. But they are not just standing and shooting at targets. They are running, they are leaping, they are shooting from difficult, unbalanced positions. And they are practicing with a bow that is a direct descendant of the Mongol composite bow, its recurved limbs storing immense power. The techniques they are learning, the thumb draw, the focus on a quick fluid release, the integration of movement and archery, are all part of the long, powerful legacy of the steppe warriors. The Mongol archer may be gone, but his techniques, his knowledge, and his spirit live on, preserved and honored in the training schools of the nations he once terrorized. And so, we return to the image that has haunted the memory of history for centuries. The lone figure on horseback, a silhouette against the setting sun on a vast empty plain. The horse and rider seem to move as one, a single fluid shadow. In the fading light, the rider raises his bow. There is a moment of perfect absolute stillness. And then, the silent, almost invisible flight of an arrow. This is the legacy of the Mongol archer. It is a legacy of a life lived in perfect harmony with the horse. It is a legacy of a technology, the composite bow, that was a masterpiece of patient craftsmanship. It is a legacy of a strategy that was as much about psychology as it was about military might. It is the story of how a small group of nomadic hunters, through a combination of ancient tradition and visionary leadership, became the masters of their world. The sound of their hoofbeats has long since faded. The hiss of their arrows has fallen silent. But their image, the ghost on the wind, remains, a quiet and enduring symbol of the fearsome, silent power of the steppe. The image of the lone archer, silhouetted against a vast and empty sky, is a powerful and romantic one. It has become the enduring symbol of the Mongol warrior. But this image, in its solitary splendor, can be misleading. For the reality of the Mongol archer's life, and the source of his true strength, was not found in isolation, but in the deep, complex, and sometimes contradictory web of his social world. To fully understand him, we must pull back from the lone horseman and observe the teeming, vibrant, and highly organized community that created him. Let us now dismount from the saddle of the individual warrior and step into the communal warmth of the ger to witness the social life that underpinned the military might. Imagine a large encampment, an ordu spread across a wide, grassy river valley. From a distance, it looks like a scattered flock of immense, round, grey and white sheep. Hundreds, perhaps thousands of gers dot the landscape. This is not a chaotic jumble. There is a precise and deeply meaningful order to the layout. At the very centre, on a slightly raised piece of ground, is the great ger of the Khan. It is larger than the others, its felt coverings perhaps a brilliant white, its wooden doorframe intricately carved and painted with swirling symbolic designs. Arranged in concentric circles around it are the gers of his family, his chief retainers, and his personal guard, the kishig. The further one moves from the centre, the lower one's rank. The entire camp is a map of the social universe, with the Khan at its absolute unmoving centre. Let us step inside one of the more modest gers in the outer circles. This is the home of the young warrior we have been following, and his new wife. He is no longer a boy learning his skills, but a man with a family and responsibilities. The interior is simple, but it is a space of immense comfort and efficiency. The floor is covered with thick felt rugs, warm and soft underfoot. The wooden lattice of the walls is a framework for storing the family's possessions. Rolled up bedding, bags made of animal hide containing grains and dried meat, and the tools of their daily life. Every object has its place. The space is divided by custom, not by walls. The area to the west, behind the hearth, is the place of honour, reserved for the male head of the household and for respected guests. The eastern side is the woman's domain, where the cooking utensils and the tools for cheese-making and sewing are kept. The area near the door is the lower status, for servants or those of little importance. Life inside the GR is a constant, unspoken performance of these social rules. Our young archer is sitting on a low stool, patiently repairing a leather strap on his horse's bridle. His hands, so deadly and efficient with a bow, are now engaged in a delicate, precise act of mending. His wife is kneeling near the central fire, rhythmically churning yogurt in a leather bag. Her movements fluid and economical. She is the centre of this small domestic world. While the man's role is to hunt and to fight, to operate in the world outside the ger, her role is to manage everything within it. She is responsible for the food, the clothing, the raising of the children, and most critically, the GR itself. It is the women who are responsible for taking down, transporting, and re-erecting the home. Their mastery of this complex task is what gives the Mongol horde its incredible mobility. The army can move so quickly because its domestic life is designed to be portable, a skill entirely in the hands of its women. Their life is one of shared, often silent labour, but it is not without its moments of leisure and community. Let us imagine that evening has fallen, the work is done. The flap of the GR is pushed aside, and a neighbour, another young warrior from the same Arban, enters. He is greeted not with a formal bow, but with a quiet nod. He is offered a bowl of airag, fermented mare's milk, the ubiquitous social drink of the steppe. It has a sharp, sour, and slightly alcoholic taste, a flavour that is an acquired, but deeply cherished, part of Mongol life. The men sit together in the warm, fire-lit space. They do not engage in loud, boisterous conversation. Their talk is quiet, punctuated by long, comfortable silences. They might speak of the day's hunt. One might describe the movement of a herd of deer he spotted near the river. The other might respond with a story of a wolf he saw. His description focused on the practical details, its size, the condition of its coat, the direction it was heading. Their conversation is spare, functional, and deeply rooted in the realities of their environment. Or they might speak of their horses, comparing the strengths and weaknesses of their mounts with the detailed, expert knowledge of a master mechanic discussing an engine. There is no talk of abstract ideas, no philosophical debate. Their world is concrete, immediate, and intensely practical. Now, let us imagine a different scene, a contrast between this quiet, egalitarian social life of the common warrior and the world of the elite. We travel to the great central ger of the Khan. Here, the felt rugs on the floor are thicker, more luxurious, perhaps imported from Persia. The wooden latticework of the walls might be hung with shimmering silks from China. The Khan is hosting a feast. He reclines on a raised platform, a low table before him laden with food. The guests are his generals, his allies, the chieftains of powerful clans. The social etiquette here is far more rigid. A man's importance is indicated by how close he is allowed to sit to the Khan. The food is a display of power and wealth. There are immense platters of boiled mutton, the choicest, fattest pieces being offered first to the Khan and then to his most honoured guests. There are bowls of exotic fruits, brought at great expense from the settled lands to the south. The airag is served not in simple wooden bowls, but in cups of silver and gold, looted from the cities they have conquered. The conversation here is still quiet, but it is charged with political meaning. A slight nuance in the Khan's tone, a small gesture of favor as he offers a piece of meat to one general over another. These are all carefully watched and interpreted. This is the world of high-stakes politics, a world of power and patronage that is a universe away from the simple comradeship of the common soldier's jur. But even in this elite setting, the fundamental values of the steppe are present. A storyteller, an old man with a weathered face and a powerful resonant voice, is called forward. He holds a morin khur, a two-stringed horsehead fiddle. As he begins to play, a hush falls over the entire gathering. The instrument produces a sound that is both mournful and majestic, a sound that seems to carry the endless, windy expanse of the steppe within it. And then he begins to sing. He sings the great epic of the Mongol people, the story of their ancestors, the tale of Genghis Khan's rise to power. His voice fills the great jur, and all the men, from the powerful Khan to the lowest servant standing by the door, listen in rapt silence. This is their shared history, their collective identity. This is the story that binds them all together. The epic poem reminds them that, despite the differences in their current status, they all come from the same place. They are all children of the steppe, and they all share in the glory of the great Mongol nation. The contrast between the simple life of the common archer and the opulent, politically charged world of the Khan highlights the social transformation that occurred under the empire. The Mongol society was not a simple, egalitarian brotherhood of warriors. It was a complex, hierarchical structure, with a vast gulf between the common soldier and the ruling elite. Yet they were all bound by a shared culture, a shared history, and a shared set of skills that were born from the unique demands of their environment. The archer's ability to function as part of a perfect, coordinated team was not just the result of military drilling. It was a reflection of a society that valued community, that relied on unspoken communication, and that understood, from centuries of experience, that the survival of the individual depended entirely on the strength and cohesion of the group. The power of the Mongol army was forged not just on the training ground, but in the quiet, communal warmth of the jur, in the shared bowl of arag, and in the ancient unifying power of a shared story. The stories and songs shared in the firelit warmth of the jia provided the spiritual and cultural glue that held the Mongol nation together. But the legacy of the Mongol archer was not only written in the epic poems of his own people, it was also carved, in letters of terror and awe, into the chronicles of the civilizations he shattered. To complete our understanding, we must now turn our gaze outward and witness the profound, world-altering impact of this force of nature as it poured out from the steppes and across the known world. We must see the archer not as his comrades saw him, but as he was seen by his enemies, as an enigma, a scourge, and an agent of terrifying, inevitable change. Let us once more imagine the elderly monk in his European scriptorium. Years have passed since he first wrote of the Devil's Horseman. The initial shock has now been replaced by a grim, settled reality. The Mongols are not a passing storm. They are a permanent feature on the eastern edge of his world, a constant, existential threat. The monk is now compiling a different kind of record. He is meticulously copying letters received from bishops and princes in Poland and Hungary, lands that have borne the full brunt of the Mongol invasions. These letters are not filled with the bravado of warriors. They are filled with a deep, existential dread and a desperate, almost clinical attempt to understand the nature of the foe that has so utterly defeated them. One letter, from a knight who survived the catastrophic Battle of Legnica, describes the Mongol tactics with a sense of bewilderment. He writes of how the Mongols refused to engage in honorable close combat. He describes how his own army's charge, a seemingly unstoppable force of armored chivalry, was simply swallowed by the vast, empty plain. He struggles to find the words to describe the feigned retreat, the encirclement, and the final horrifying arrow storm that rained down from all sides. He writes, "It was as if we were not fighting men, but a swarm of hornets, which cannot be struck with a sword, but stings from all directions at once." He notes their strange, silent methods of communication, the flags and smoke signals, and contrasts them with the loud, boisterous horns and shouted commands of his own army. He is, in essence, describing a form of warfare so alien to his own experience that he lacks the vocabulary to properly define it. His letter is an autopsy of a military disaster, a document born of trauma, a warning to the rest of Christendom that their entire way of war, their reliance on heavy armor and direct charges, was obsolete in the face of this new threat. Now, let us travel to a different center of civilization, to the magnificent ancient city of Baghdad. It is the heart of the Islamic Golden Age, a city of stunning mosques, vast libraries, and bustling markets. It is a center of science, philosophy, and art, and it is about to die. We find ourselves in the study of a renowned scholar. He is a historian, a man who has spent his life chronicling the glorious rise of the caliphate. The air in his study is thick with the scent of old parchment and rosewater. But from outside his window, there is a new sound, a sound that does not belong in this city of poets and thinkers. It is the sound of muffled thunder, the sound of the great Mongol siege engines hurling massive rocks against the city's ancient, seemingly impregnable walls. The scholar is writing in his diary. His hand is steady, but his words convey a sense of impending doom. He writes of the Mongol army that has surrounded the city, a force so vast it seems to cover the entire plain. He writes of their unnerving silence, their terrifying efficiency. He has heard the stories from Persia, of cities that resisted and were utterly destroyed, their entire populations put to the sword. The caliph, secure in the belief of his city's divine protection and the strength of its walls, has refused to surrender. The scholar fears this is a fatal mistake. A few days later, the walls are breached. The scholar writes his final entry. He describes the sounds of the invaders pouring into the city. He does not describe a chaotic mob. He describes an organized, systematic process of destruction. He writes of squadrons of horse archers, moving through the streets with terrifying speed, clearing all resistance before them. He describes their arrows, which seem to never miss their mark, felling the city's defenders from their posts on the rooftops and walls. He writes, "They move not like men, but like a flood or a fire. There is no stopping them. They do not pause. They do not reason. They only destroy." He knows his own end is near. The great library, the house of wisdom, containing hundreds of thousands of irreplaceable manuscripts, is about to be put to the torch, its precious knowledge turned to ash, its ink said to have turned the waters of the Tigris black for days. The scholar's final words are not a prayer for his own life, but a lament for the death of his city, a world of knowledge and beauty about to be erased by a force it could not comprehend. His diary, if it survives, will be one of the last testaments from a world that has ceased to exist, its end brought about by the silent, disciplined efficiency of the men from the steppe. The Mongol archer did not just leave a legacy of fear and destruction. In the lands they conquered and held, they became catalysts for a different kind of change. Let us travel forward in time to the China of the late 13th century. The land is now ruled by Kublai Khan, the grandson of Genghis. He has established the Yuan dynasty. He is no longer a nomadic chieftain living in a ger. He is the emperor of China, and he rules from a magnificent newly built capital city, Khan Balik, on the site of modern-day Beijing. We find ourselves within the walls of the Forbidden City, a place of immense, ordered grandeur, of sweeping tiled roofs and serene courtyards. An old Mongol general, a man who rode with the Khans in his youth, is instructing his own grandson in the courtyard, but he is not teaching him in the old way, on the open plains. He is in a formal archery range, with paved walkways and clearly marked targets. The boy is dressed not in the rough leathers of the steppe, but in fine, patterned silks. He holds a composite bow, but it is more ornate, more decorated than the functional weapons of his ancestors. The general watches the boy shoot. The boy is skilled. He has learned the thumb draw, the breath control. But the general sees that something is missing. The deep instinctual connection to the horse, the ability to become one with a moving animal, is a skill that cannot be learned in a static urban environment. He tries to explain this to the boy. He speaks of the feel of the wind, of the rhythm of a galloping horse, of the need to be able to read the landscape. The boy listens politely, but he does not truly understand. His world is one of palace walls, of court intrigue, of the study of classical Chinese texts. He is becoming Chinese. The general feels a sense of quiet sadness. He knows he is witnessing the end of an era. The very success of his people, their conquest of this great ancient civilization, is now slowly, inexorably taming them. The hard, practical skills of the steppe, born of necessity and survival, are becoming a stylized ceremonial art form. The fearsome Mongol horse archer is becoming a character in a story, a legend to be admired rather than a living reality. The legacy is preserved, but the soul of it, the part that was forged in the vast, unforgiving emptiness of the grasslands, is beginning to fade. And so, we are left with the lasting image, the one that has echoed down through the centuries. It is an image of profound paradox. The Mongol archer was a product of one of the most remote and sparsely populated regions on Earth, yet he redrew the map of the world. He was a warrior whose personal life was defined by quiet community, yet he was perceived by his enemies as a solitary demonic force. He was the instrument of almost unimaginable destruction, yet the empire he helped to build created a period of unprecedented peace and trade, the Pax Mongolica, which connected east and west as never before. The true legacy of the Mongol archer, then, is not just in the fear he inspired or the empires he shattered. It is in the way he represents the immense, world-changing power of a single, perfectly mastered skill. A skill that was not just a military technique, but the culmination of an entire way of life. The story of the Mongol archer is a quiet reminder that the most powerful forces in history are often born in the most silent and forgotten of places. It is a reminder that a culture's greatest strength can be found in the things it teaches its children, in the stories it tells by the fire, and in the deep, unspoken bonds that connect a people to their land, to their animals, and to each other. The wind that blows across the steppe today carries no flags, no smoke signals, no whispers of approaching armies. But if you listen closely, in the profound silence of that vast and empty land, you can almost still hear the distant, rhythmic hoofbeats and the soft, final hiss of an arrow in its flight. The great empire, like all things built by mortal hands, eventually receded. The vast territory fractured, the conquered lands reasserted their own identities, and the unstoppable tide of Mongol conquest slowly ebbed back into the great grasslands from which it had come. The world moved on, cities were rebuilt, new kingdoms rose and fell, and the memory of the horse archer, the fearsome ghost on the wind, began to fade from a terrifying reality into the realm of legend and myth. But a legacy so profound does not simply vanish. It leaves traces, echoes in the land itself, and in the enduring spirit of a people. To conclude our journey, we must become archaeologists of memory, sifting through the dust of centuries to find the last, quiet remnants of this extraordinary warrior culture. Let us imagine ourselves first in a place where the echo is one of violence and upheaval. We are on a wide, flat plain in modern-day Hungary. It is a peaceful, agricultural landscape. The summer sun warms a field of sunflowers, their heavy heads all turned in the same direction. The only sound is the gentle, soporific hum of bees and the distant, mechanical drone of a modern tractor. But beneath this tranquil surface, just a few feet below the rich topsoil, lies the memory of a single, terrible day in the year 1241. This was the site of the Battle of Mohi, a place where a great European army was not just defeated, but annihilated by the Mongol host. A team of archaeologists is at work. Their process is the polar opposite of the battle that took place here. It is not one of explosive violence, but of infinite, painstaking patience. They have marked out a large grid on the field. They kneel in the dirt, under the hot sun, and they work with small trowels and soft brushes. Their movements are slow, deliberate, and full of a quiet reverence for the story the earth holds. For weeks they find very little, but then a trowel scrapes against something hard. The archaeologist stops. With the delicate touch of a surgeon, he begins to brush away the soil, grain by grain, and slowly a shape emerges from the dirt. It is a small, three-sided pyramid of rusted iron. It is a Mongol arrowhead, a bodkin point designed for a single, brutal purpose: to punch through the chainmail and thin plate armor of a European knight. As they continue to search, they find more. Dozens, then hundreds of them, scattered across the field in a distinct pattern that allows them to map the course of the battle. They find clusters of them in the area where the European knights made their last desperate stand. They can almost see the final terrible arrow storm written in the placement of these small, deadly artifacts. They find the skeletons of horses, and by measuring the bones, they confirm what the chroniclers wrote. The Mongol mounts were small, hardy ponies, a stark contrast to the massive war horses of the European knights. In another part of the world, perhaps in a high, arid region of the Altai Mountains, another discovery is made, this one far rarer. A burial mound, a kurgan, which has been protected by the region's dry climate or, in some cases, by the miraculous preservative power of permafrost, is excavated. Inside, among the remains of a long-dead chieftain, they find the remnants of the instrument of his power. It is a composite bow. It is in a fragile skeletal state. The wood of the core has mostly rotted away. The fish bladder glue has long since dissolved. But the two most crucial components have, against all odds, survived. The strips of horn from the bow's belly are still intact, their smooth, curved shape unmistakable, and the thick, fibrous layers of sinew from the bow's back, though now dry and brittle, are still there, a dense, powerful laminate. The archaeologists handle these fragments with an almost religious awe. They are touching a ghost. They can see, in these humble organic materials, the genius of the design. They can feel the potential energy that was once stored in this object. They can almost hear the deep, resonant thrum of its string. This artifact, more than any text, tells the story of the patient, year-long process of its creation. It is a physical link to the deep, practical knowledge of the steppe craftsman. These archaeological finds, the scattered arrowheads on a European battlefield, the fragile remnants of a bow in a mountain tomb, are the physical evidence that grounds the legend in reality. They are the full stops at the end of the terrible sentences written by the medieval chroniclers. They are the tangible proof of the skill, the technology, and the devastating impact of the Mongol archer. But the legacy is not only buried under the earth. It lives and breathes today on the same vast grasslands where it was first born. To find it, we must travel to modern Mongolia in the middle of summer during the festival of Nadam. This is the national celebration, the festival of the three manly games: wrestling, horse racing, and archery. We find ourselves on the outskirts of Ulaanbaatar. A great crowd has gathered in a large open field. The atmosphere is festive, joyful, and deeply proud. Families are spread out on blankets, sharing picnics. The air is filled with the sound of laughter, music, and the excited chatter of the crowd. We make our way to the archery grounds. Here, the competitors are gathered. They are men and women, young and old. They are dressed in their finest traditional robes, the deal, made of brightly coloured silk, tied at the waist with a contrasting sash. The clothing is beautiful, but it is also practical, designed for a life on horseback. And the bows they hold are immediately recognisable. They are the direct descendants of the weapons that conquered empires. They are large, powerful composite bows made of wood, horn, and sinew, their recurved limbs holding a familiar, potent energy. The competition begins, but the archers are not shooting at human-sized targets. The targets, called surs, are small, woven leather cylinders placed on the ground in a row 100 yards away. The goal is not to pierce armour, but to display a supreme and subtle accuracy. The archers stand in a line. There is a quiet sense of ritual and focus. Before shooting, an archer might murmur a quiet prayer or dedication. He takes his stance, his body relaxed but aligned. He uses the thumb draw, his hand protected by a polished ring. He nocks the arrow. His movements are fluid, unhurried. He draws the great bow back, a smooth, powerful motion. And for a moment he holds, his body a statue of perfect, focused stillness. Then he releases, and a strange and beautiful thing happens. As the arrow flies, the archer and a group of judges standing near the target all sing out. It is a long, melodic, rising and falling cry called a ukai. It is a song that follows the arrow on its long journey through the air. It is a song of encouragement, a song of praise for the archer and his skill. It is a sound that transforms the act of archery from a silent, solitary pursuit into a communal, shared performance. The arrow lands, perhaps striking one of the small targets with a soft thud. A judge raises a flag, and the song of the ukai rises in a triumphant crescendo. Here, on the fields of Nadam, the skills of the ancient warrior have been transformed. The aggression has been turned into art. The lethal purpose has been replaced by a joyful celebration of skill and tradition. The silence of the battlefield has been replaced by the communal song of the ukai, but the core elements are all still here. The powerful, sophisticated bow, the immense patient skill required to master it, the deep cultural importance of archery as a marker of identity. The children who watch this competition, their eyes wide with wonder, are learning the same lessons their ancestors learned. They are learning that this skill, this connection to the bow, is a central part of what it means to be Mongolian. And nearby, the second of the manly games is underway, the horse racing. But these are not the short, explosive races of a European track. The Nadam horse race is a cross-country endurance event, run over a course that can be 15 or 20 miles long. And the jockeys are not large, powerful men. They are children, boys and girls as young as 5 years old. Their small, light bodies an advantage for the horse over the long distance. They ride with a natural, fearless grace, their bright-coloured silks a flash of movement against the green and brown of the steppe. They are a living link to the past, a continuation of the tradition of a childhood spent in the saddle, of the deep, instinctual bond between a human and a horse. As the sun begins to set on the festival grounds, casting a long, golden light over the landscape, we see it all come together. We see the modern archer singing his arrow on its flight. We see the child jockey galloping effortlessly across the plain. We see the families gathered together, telling stories, their lives still quietly revolving around the rhythms of the seasons and the well-being of their animals. The great empire is a distant memory, a story told in books and sung in epic poems, but the spirit of the horse archer has not disappeared. It has simply come home. It is no longer a force of conquest, but a source of deep cultural pride. The whisper on the wind is no longer a harbinger of fear, but a song of celebration, a quiet and enduring testament to the skills, the resilience, and the unbreakable spirit of the people of the Great Steppe. The Festival of Nadam, with its joyful celebration of ancient skills, shows us how a legacy can be transformed from a tool of war into an emblem of cultural identity. It is a story of preservation and adaptation, but to truly complete our journey, we must now move away from the specific traditions of the Mongol people and consider the final, quiet echo of the horse archer, the way this unique form of warfare has settled into the collective memory of the entire world, and what its story can tell us as we ourselves prepare for rest. It is a story about the nature of power, the rhythm of history, and the profound importance of stillness. Let us imagine one last scene. We are not on the steppe, nor on a battlefield. We are in a quiet university library late at night. The only sounds are the gentle hum of the building's ventilation and the soft, rhythmic turning of pages. A young student is sitting at a long wooden table, a single lamp casting a warm pool of light on her desk. She is surrounded by books, their spines bearing titles on military history, global empires, and the art of strategy. She is tired. She has been studying for hours, her mind filled with the dates of battles, the names of kings, and the complex logistics of ancient armies. She leans back in her chair, rubbing her eyes. Her focus has been on the great, settled empires, on Rome, with its disciplined legions and its meticulously engineered roads, on China, with its vast bureaucracy and its great war. These are empires of stone, of permanence, of a power that is visible, heavy, and deeply rooted in the earth. Their strength seems logical, understandable, but the story of the Mongols, the one she has just been reading, feels different. It feels like a story from another kind of reality. She looks at a map in one of the open books. It shows the sheer, almost incomprehensible scale of the Mongol Empire at its height, a vast, contiguous landmass, stretching from the Pacific Ocean to the heart of Europe. She tries to reconcile this image with the description of the people who built it. A nomadic society, with no great cities, no monumental architecture, no written language of their own in their early days. Their power seems to have come from nowhere, to have been made of nothing but grass, wind, and motion. This is the final, and perhaps most profound legacy of the Mongol archer. It is a quiet but powerful challenge to our conventional understanding of power. We are often taught to see power as something solid, something that is built and accumulated. We think of fortresses, of treasuries, of great libraries. The Mongol story teaches us that power can also be fluid, weightless, and based not on what you possess, but on what you can do without. The horse archer's strength came from his lack of attachment. He was not tied to a specific piece of land. His home was portable. His wealth was in his herds and his skills, things that could move with him. This freedom from the material, from the static, gave him a mobility and a flexibility that the great settled empires could not comprehend, let alone counter. They were like castles of stone being assaulted by the wind, and the wind, in the end, found every crack. The student begins to see the story, not just as a history of conquest, but as a kind of parable. The archer's life was one of constant movement, yet his defining skill was the ability to find a moment of perfect stillness in the midst of that motion. The silent pause in his breath, the point of balance on a galloping horse. It was in this moment of profound, focused calm that his true power was unleashed. His life was a lesson in the relationship between energy and quietude, between action and stillness. She thinks about the feigned retreat. On the surface, it is a tactic of deception. But at a deeper level, it is a tactic of patience. It required the discipline to resist the instinct for a direct, immediate charge. It required the confidence to appear weak, to lure the enemy into a state of overconfidence. It was a strategy based on a deep understanding of human psychology and on the quiet, patient waiting for the perfect moment to reveal one's true strength. The library is now almost empty. The student closes her books. The stories of the battles and the Khans begin to fade, and what remains is a quieter, more fundamental set of images. The image of a child, learning to find his balance on the warm, moving back of a horse. The image of a bowyer, patiently spending a year laminating layers of horn and sinew, trusting in a slow, natural process. The image of a hunter, sitting silently for hours, watching his prey, his movements economical, his energy conserved for the single, decisive moment. These images are profoundly soothing. They speak to a different kind of rhythm, a rhythm that is not dictated by the frantic pace of a modern city or the ticking of a clock, but by the slow, inevitable turning of the seasons, the patient movement of the herds, and the deep, steady cadence of one's own breathing. The story of the Mongol archer, which began as a history of terrifying military prowess, has become, in the quiet of this late hour, a meditation on the power of patience, the wisdom of simplicity, and the importance of finding stillness within motion. And as you now prepare for your own sleep, you can allow this final lesson to guide you. The challenges of your own day, the complexities of your own life, can be seen in a new light. The story of the horse archer reminds us that strength is not always found in confrontation, but sometimes in a strategic retreat, in the wisdom of yielding. It reminds us that true power is not always loud, but can be found in quiet focus, in the conservation of energy, in the patient waiting for the right moment. It reminds us that even in the midst of the most chaotic motion, it is possible to find a point of inner balance, a moment of profound and restorative calm. Let the rhythmic hoofbeats of the Mongol horse fade into the steady, quiet rhythm of your own heart. Let the sound of the wind sweeping across the vast, open steppe become the sound of your own slow, deep, and peaceful breathing. There are no more battles to be fought, no more empires to be won. There is only the vast, quiet landscape of the approaching sleep. Allow yourself to drift into that silent, open space, a place of deep rest where all is still and all is calm.